and Global Affairs Analyst Jonathan Wachtel join us to discuss what Africa tends to gain. Many thanks to you, Jonathan Wachtel, for joining us on this hour. We've had several African whatever country summit. We've had one in Russia, we had one in Japan, and there was one in Saudi Arabia. What does Africa stand to gain from all of these summits?
Look, the truth is, Germany, as a robust economy, a world economy, wants to make sure that it has a very strong position in the world. It makes a lot of sense for Chancellor Angela Merkel to be engaged this way, and I think it's very interesting that she is speaking to the need for transparency and an end to corruption as much as possible, because that's the only way that international trade can really flourish. If you have the ability to conduct commerce in a normal way without intrigue and blockage and odd behaviors that interrupt the process and ensure that it can't expand and be as flourishing as you want it to become.
China has investments here. We have U.S., we have Germany, there is France. It almost looks like there is a battle for the heart of Africa. What's the implication of all of this, for Africa, all of this foreign influence?
Well, the Chinese, as you know, sitting that you're looking out at your backyard and you understand how much influence China has had on the continent of Africa. They've been very aggressive in everything from building stadiums to other infrastructure, and very interested in tapping into the vast resources of the continent, and really in many ways are ahead of the game. And Western nations, have for whatever reasons not paid attention to the great wealth and resource-rich continent as much as maybe one would argue. And the Chinese are smart at this, and I would anticipate a more robust and engaged approach by European governments, certainly, and the United States to take Africa seriously. I mean, you folks have amazing minerals and resources, and I mean, even the components of what go into the construction of all our smartphones, the cobalt and everything else. I mean, we have to pay attention to it. And, if you're working in manufacturing and trying to create electronics and some of the more sophisticated things that run the world economy these days, Africa actually is at the center of it.
While that is true that Africa is at the center of it, but most of these agreements or deals do not really benefit Africa. So what can African leaders do now to ensure that these trade agreements are beneficial to Africa?
African governments need to, of course, and they're right to complain that there's a lopsided approach to this often, and they feel this imbalance is unfair and not helpful, and certainly don't want to be exploited. So I think the African leadership, depending on the country and the situation, obviously, but broadly needs to ensure that they're not getting a bad deal. Having said that, there has to be an element of acceptance that without an infusion of cash from the West, for instance, you may not achieve your grand goals of economic growth. And throwing all your eggs in the basket of Beijing, for instance, comes with some peril, because I don't want to speak badly of China necessarily, but some of their aspirational agenda on the continent is more about China than the benefit of the local population in Africa. In some ways you can accuse other governments of that very same imbalance and lack of moral fiber to approach, but then again, some nations are better at diplomacy and caring and reaching out and human rights and some of the other concerns that need to be there.
Global Affairs Analyst Jonathan Wachtel, many thanks for your time.